Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Canadian Rocketship Companies. I'm your host, Alex Norman, and this week I'm joined by the amazing Andrew Chau, co-founder and CEO of Neo Financial. Andrew was previously the co-founder of Skip the Dishes before making the leap to the financial sector. So what is a Canadian Rocketship Company? Canadian Rocketship Company is a list of about 30 Canadian startups that you can join to accelerate your career. TechTO has been around for 7 years, and every week or every day we get questions about what are the companies that will put me in the center of the ecosystem? How can I advance my career quicker? So that's why we put the Canadian Rocketship List together. What we're doing every week is we're having a podcast with one of the founders from one of the companies. So strap in, join us for this conversation with Andrew Chau, and if you have time, go listen to this podcast series to hear from other great founders. So let's get started. Let's welcome Andrew. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Alex.
Thanks for joining us all the way from Calgary. How's life in Calgary right now?
It's great. It's a sunny day outside. We're building companies here, so it's all good.
Well, I feel like Alberta's we went into COVID, everyone questioning where's the center of the ecosystem across Canada. And I think Alberta's starting to make an argument that there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. So I'm excited to have you here. I'm excited to talk about Neo and just excited for what's going on in Alberta. First, I'd love to get a 30-second background of what you did prior to starting Neo.
Yeah, so prior to starting Neo Financial, I am originally from Saskatchewan, so that's the prairie born and raised. So you'll start to see a reoccurring theme in terms of Neo and our story. But I was a finance grad. I had graduated from university here in Saskatchewan. After graduating, I worked in consulting for a number of years and eventually made the leap to entrepreneurship, joining as a founder at Skip the Dishes, where we scaled that company to just over 3,000 employees, sort of across Canada, and saw an opportunity to really take what we had learned from doing Skip the Dishes of building consumer tech-oriented companies here in Canada, focus on Canada for Canadians, and bring that over to the banking space. So that's sort of how Neo had gotten started. I can get into that full story a little bit later, but yeah.
So before we get into that story, which I do want to get into, for people that don't know Neo Financial, what do you actually do?
So Neo Financial, we are a new challenger fintech here in Canada. And really what we're focused on is reimagining that financial experience for Canadians. You look at the space today with the big five banks that own literally 93% market share. So it's generally unheard of around the world to have that concentration across very few players. And because of that, there's a lot of legacy technology, legacy infrastructure, and legacy process that's involved. So really what we wanted to do was build a fintech or a bank from scratch. But rather than focusing, just on creating the best app experience, which we have, but also create more of a marketplace or a network. So where we're actually connecting local businesses, regional and national brands with consumers as well. So today we are actually starting with a card that offers you cash back from hundreds and thousands of different places. So it's a credit card. As well as a bank account that's a no-fee bank account, like a checking account with unlimited transactions, no monthly fees, but it also earns you a high interest rate too. And that's these everyday spending, everyday saving products is really what we're starting with, and it's our foundation for what we're building in the future as well.
And so it sounds like you're a consumer bank to start with, and you're offering what sounds like a great product. Any interest today is a good interest in the consumer account. And so you talked a bit about that switch from, food delivery. And I got to say, I have a 6-year-old son that whenever he walks by Baskin Robbins says, skip the dishes. So I don't know what ad he saw, but he associates Baskin Robbins with skip the dishes. But you went from food delivery, built a successful Canadian company there. You mentioned you wanted to have the same impact in finance, but tell us a bit more about that story, how that transition happened, how it all came together, and why start with challenging one of our biggest oligopolistic industries in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those pieces where a lot of people ask that same question of why food delivery to banking in all industries, and at the end of the day, there's actually a lot more commonalities across both. because at the end of the day, we're still serving the average Canadian. And when we're looking at serving average Canadian, it's really around creating experiences that are seamless, that are transparent, that are delightful, and that just add value across the whole ecosystem. So when we think about the banking system today, they generally don't look and feel like an Airbnb or an Uber or a Skip, right? They feel like a bank. So how do we move that experience away from all of the preconceived connotations and negative biases that we have around banks, and instead build something from scratch that looks and feels like a tech company, and creates all of those experiences that we come to expect. And I think for us, focusing on Canada is really our core. Focusing on the businesses, the local businesses that are and the small businesses that are across Canada, adding value to them through the loyalty network and the rewards network that we actually enable them to have, given that they can provide cashback rewards to all the cardholders. And really what we're doing is connecting both of these parties together to create something that very similar to Skip the Dishes, where we had restaurants and consumers. For banking, it's really around connecting all of these businesses where you're already shopping at, or you want to shop at, with consumers that are looking to just get more value out of what they're doing every day.
Interesting. And I guess one other similarity is, you co-founded Skip the Dishes with Josh Samer. Josh now, I think, is at Harvest Builders, which helped co-start Neo Financial. So can you explain maybe what Harvest Builders is and what the relationship between the two organizations is?
Yeah. So it was actually his brother, Chris Samer, that started Harvest. But
okay,
So Harvest is a nonprofit venture builder based in the prairies, and really, the genesis of Harvest was to really, again, related to this conversation, build multiple rocket ships in the prairies when it comes to tech, and all of the infrastructure and scaffolding that we had built with Skip the Dishes, hadn't really existed prior to Skip. So with Harvest, the goal of that was really, how do we take companies and essentially build more meaningful companies in the prairies? Neo happened to be one of the first sort of companies coming out of Harvest. And I think Harvest has a few other companies, and you probably have Harvest on here so the next time around as well, so they can explain it a bit better than I can.
Yeah, I think I may have spoken to one or two founders starting Harvest companies. It's exciting. And then, one of the things we talk about startups is product market fit. Where is Neo Financial in the journey to product market fit? Do you have it? If so, how do you know you have it? If not, what do you have to do to get it?
Yeah, no, I mean, product market fit is always a key question, and it's one of those pieces where you're never really done, right? You're never really done trying to find product market fit. I think there's always different phases, right? It's sort of a gradual scale, not a 0 or a 1. And for us, we're always trying to search for better ways, because we don't have 25 million Canadians using Neo yet, right? Now, publicly disclosed, we do not have 25 million Canadians yet. But it's really around, how do we continue building product, adding value to Canadians, so that it becomes a no-brainer for people to say, yeah, of course I'm going to use Neo, right? However, to date, we've had a lot of traction. For example, obviously, in the last 18 months, we've essentially stood up a fully fledged, insured bank account. We've fully stood up a credit card, as well as rewards network. We work with just over 3,000 businesses across Canada to date. We've also partnered with Hudson's Bay to power their credit card as well. So every time you walk into an HBC, that is our credit card that we're powering as well. So we have, again, back to our thesis around building experiences that benefits all Canadians. It's really around, how do we insert ourselves and add value in across a customer's sort of journey throughout their lives.
I love that. So that product market fit's not a point in time or one thing. It's a constantly earned and reiterated, and it sounds like you're getting some traction and you're well on your way. If I look at talking about product market fit and Skip the Dishes, and last question about that, what are you doing differently? What have you learned that you're applying to Neo Financial? Because I like the similarities. So how's that enabling you to make Neo more impactful or bigger or different?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning that we had, coming from building a marketplace business, was that the power of network effects are key and crucial, um, especially when it comes to financial services and banking. You need multiple, or at least the way that we think about it, building a two-sided marketplace when it comes to banking is actually much more value add and can create much more value than just focusing on one side. So what typically happens with banks today is focus on one side, right? They focus on building a product which looks exactly the same as every other product out there, but they build that for a consumer. Whereas for us, we not only have that, but we're also building products for businesses to help them grow their business, attract net new customers, as well as keep their most loyals. So when you can actually layer in the business side of the market as well as a consumer side, you can create 10 times more value by adding value to both sides, because then you create this virtuous cycle, much like any other marketplace or network effect. And that's where, that's what we had learned through Skip the Dishes, was that it was never just one side of the party. Because if we ran a massive marketing campaign on a Friday night, we're going to, all the restaurants are going to be jammed up because they can't handle that much volume anyway.
Friday's right at their peak.
Exactly. So it's really a matter of balancing those two sides of the market and ensuring you can add value across sort of all sides.
Great. I want to talk a bit about the future of Neo, but I'm going to take a couple questions from our audience.
Sure.
So I'll display it here. So from France, it's basically saying, okay, in the UK, there's lots of challenger banks. They're being bought by the big banks there, and they're no longer serving the average Joe. So how are you going to avoid that?
That is a great question. I think the reason why we started Neo in the first place was to really, build something that was for, that is for all Canadians. Not just the, obviously average Joe, using that quote, but, all the way to, young new entrants to finance, all the way to people who are more mature and want, a great experience. And I think one of the pieces to really avoid that is, to back to your point, Alex, is ensuring that we can find product market fit across all of these different segments and move faster than what everyone else can do. And I think our advantage as a startup, and when we think about bringing people on as well, our only advantage as a startup is our people, but our people is really around how fast can we innovate and how fast can we move. We will never have, or not never, but today we don't have $100 billion of cash sitting on our balance sheet, right? Relative to what the big banks have on theirs. So it's really around, well, what are the advantages that we have, and how do we continue to pursue those and advance those relative to what anyone else can do?
So I love that. Constantly, it goes back to the product market fit, constantly trying to be unique and figuring out what your customers actually want. Got one other participant or viewer has asked a question. So Natalie, it's basically, looks like she's interested in your credit card. She wants to know what else is different about your credit card services, and what are you planning to provide? So tell us what's down the road.
Yeah, for sure. So with the Neo card, which is a credit card, we actually did away with points. So we actually don't have, our core currency is instant cash back. So every time you swipe with your card or tap it, you earn instant cash back from our partners with an average of 4 to 6% at these partners as well. And first off, we're really the only card that supports local across Canada. We truly do, because we partner with all of these local businesses. But two, it's really around that financial experience too. So when you think about the fictitious fees that exist with credit cards, such as an over limit fee. So currently, banks generally charge you $39 if you accidentally go over your limit. And really, for us, rather than layering on all these gotcha fees that the banks usually put on, we said, well, how do we just make sure that it create a great experience and not actually focus on gotchas, right? So we actually tell you, hey, we don't charge you for an over limit. We just say, hey, here you're over limit. Make sure you pay off your bill. And or when it's time to pay your bill, we actually remind you, multiple times over and over to say, hey, your bill is coming up. So we make it a much more intuitive process rather than trying to hide all those details. And in return, really what we're trying to build is, we'll just spend less on marketing and have people refer their friends instead.
Awesome. So actually delivering value, expecting word of mouth to lower your customer acquisition cost, and yeah, making sure it's consumer focused.
Exactly. And the fact that you can sign up for either a bank account or the card in less than 3 minutes digitally on your phone without needing to go into a branch to verify ID. That in itself, took us quite a bit of time to actually do. And that's why you don't really see that in the market today.
For someone listening, where can they go do that?
They can go to neofinancial.com to check us out and sign up. And again, sign up, explore, get to know sort of what we do. That's really the easiest way to do that.
And then if you're like, it sounds like it's an emerging vision, but if we were to say we were sitting here in 10 years, what would your company look like? Andrew, what would you say Neo Financial is in 10 years? So it's 2031.
2031. That is,
sounds scary.
Feels so long. I think one of the most interesting, pieces is that, our team, what we were able to accomplish over the last 18, 21 months, we've essentially stood up what, the core offerings for what a bank offers, right? And the real question is, from 12 months from now, 24 months from now, what you see today with Neo Financial is going to be drastically different 12 months from now and 2 years, 3 years from now, really just because of the innovation that we can do. And having this foundation of what we built enables us to essentially, create whatever we want to create when it comes to financial experiences. So I'll take, a mortgage, for example, because we know, your income, because we know how much down payment you have already saved, we can help you save for a mortgage. We can help you calculate whether or not you should buy versus rent. And by the way, when you're ready to actually buy a mortgage, we can do that in a couple of clicks because we already have your information. Why do you need to fill out 300 pages of docs again, right? So it's really around creating these seamless experiences so that you use Neo on a daily basis, and there's really no friction along the way because as a tech company that we can leverage all of these pieces that we already know around that.
That's awesome. And like now I want to get to a bit of the people you're looking for in a team. You've mentioned them a few times. We're talking about careers here. So how would you describe Neo Financial's culture?
Yeah, I think, I alluded to it a little bit before in terms of our advantages. And I think one of our biggest advantages is moving fast and truly, looking at the consumer or the end consumer and sort of working backwards from there. And I think what we generally look for in terms of building out our team is people that are willing to, take on a challenge because, in general, startups, especially at Neo, not easy, right? I mean, if you want an easy job, there's many out there. And I think it's really around finding people who want to make an impact and impact millions of Canadians. And I think that's really the key, right? I mean, all of us at Neo are not here to just get a paycheck, right? It's really around, the time that you put in, whether it's the number of hours that you put in per week, it's really around, do those hours go towards something that will last 100 years more, past all of us here today, right? And that's really the fun part about building Neo is that we're able to use it ourselves. Our friends and family are able to use it. And the more that we put into it, the more that we can actually create value. And again, looking at financial services as one of the, outside of healthcare and a few others, it's one of the core areas where we can meaningfully impact Canada, right? If we can actually give back, $1,000 every single year to every single Canadian across the country, that is massive impact. And that's really what we can do with technology because we can streamline and get rid of all of that waste and get rid of all of that extra stuff that had built up over a ton of time and say, hey, what's just the best solution or product for this problem today? And we just work backwards from there.
So I love it because I usually break this, you know, team down to a few different questions. I think you've answered because I usually, you know, like, so I hear like cultures and why you should work there is basically, hey, you want to have an impact. You want to basically reinvent financial services, and you like a challenge, and you're going to work to get that challenge solved. So that's actually quite amazing. How big is the team right now, roughly?
Yeah, so right now we're just over 275 people, and we're growing quickly.
And you're growing quickly. So like, how many people do you need right now? What do you think you'll be at the end of the year?
Yeah, so right now we're hiring for over 50 roles right now across multiple different areas, whether it's product, engineering, design, our customer experience teams as well. And we're based in the prairies, so we have sort of people in Calgary, we have people in Winnipeg as well, and we are continually growing, finding great people that want to make an impact, and yeah.
And where can I find all these? Is it basically on neofinancial.com? Is there a career page?
There is a careers page. Yep, exactly.
And what's the process like? So is the best way to get a job to apply through the career page, and then is it like a few interviews, like just so someone that's interested, because that's 50 is a nice number of jobs.
Yeah, no, it is. That's exactly the process. I think you generally interview or meet a few people on the team across the board, because again, when you're working with people day in, day out, you want to be able to work with them, have a relationship with them, and so on. So you do generally go through multiple interviews, and depending on the role, that'll depend on the team that you're speaking with. And that's generally the process. Generally takes can be it's literally as fast as a week. So
yeah. So 50 people, 270. So you're basically expanding the team by 20% in the next few months. So or next 6 months. That's a lot. And anything else we should know about the culture, the team, or why you should join?
I think I hit on most of them, but really at the end of the day, it's there's a lot of the time there's very few opportunities to do something like this, right? I think there's a reason why there hadn't been a net new challenger bank who had started outside of some of the fintechs that we see today, but before that was back in 1997 with ING Direct.
Yeah,
right?
that's
it's a very long time ago. So they're very far and few between, and really, when we think about where we are today, with tech, with mobile phones, with the ability to create and scale companies really quickly, that's the opportunity that we have here at Neo, and the fact that we are helping both businesses but also consumers. That's really the exciting part for me.
Yeah, I love the network effect. It's hey, we'll help consumers have a better financial product, but we'll also help the community by not just partnering with small businesses. Andrew, you've answered all the questions. I might just take one more from the audience. Feel free to answer or not. Eric, typical right now. What Bitcoin products do you have or services you have? I think everyone thinks financial products. They think Bitcoin or crypto. Any plans in that space?
So right now we don't offer any Bitcoin sort of trading or services. Obviously, there's a ton of other companies here in Canada that do that, but for now we don't. But of course, we're always reevaluating our roadmap and figuring out sort of what can make the most sense to layer in the future.
Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. I might actually be looking up a Neo account right after if you guys actually pay interest. So this has been extremely insightful. I hope you get a lot of applications, and that when we sit down in 10 years, it's not the big 5 anymore. There's at least it's a big 6.
Right on.
Thanks so much, Andrew. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to the TechTO newsletter to stay informed of what's going on in the Canadian tech ecosystem. We have a few emails a week covering anything from what's going on in the community to great career opportunities to basically news and analysis and recommended reading. So if you want to stay informed what's going on coast to coast, I recommend you subscribe. Finally, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us up on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts to listen to our previous episodes of Canadian Rocketships and or hear our future episodes. Thank you and see you next week.